With Pokemon Smile, turn toothbrushing time into a fun time.
Am I so out of touch? No. It's the children that are wrong.
Placeholder introduction. Alright. Ah!
Is Pokemon Sonic? No. By definition, they're two different things. However, I do think their similarities in the video game industry are becoming more and more parallel. So recently, I played through the expansion pass for Sword and Shield, and I thought it was so dumb. I was bored the entire time. But to be fair, the writing was on the wall. This is the third mainline Pokemon experience that I haven't enjoyed. And that caused two realizations. One, I'm no longer the target demographic. I haven't been for a while. And two, I'm not even sure I know who the target demographic is. And that brings us to this bad boy. It's pretty widely accepted that the Sonic franchise has lost its identity in the gaming industry, and I think Pokemon is actually headed down the same path. But before I elaborate on that, first, grab your Tamagotchi, grab your lava lamp, and grab your Bart Simpson t-shirt because we are going back to the 90s. Now, it's hard to imagine a time when Sonic versus Mario was a viable argument, but when Sonic first came out, he was top dog. And when I say top dog, I mean he was the man. And when I say man, I mean he was a hedgehog. You get it. Not only was it so impressive that the games were of such a high quality, but what's more shocking is that with Sonic, Sega was able to single-handedly destroy Nintendo's monopoly on the video game market. And that was on purpose. Sonic was designed to be the antithesis of Mario. Where Mario was fun, Sonic was cool. The only problem with that is when fun generally stays the same, cool is always changing. So when the video game industry moved to 3D, the two-dimensional idea of why Sonic was created in the first place was left behind, but the marketing and the need to sell more games was not. Okay, so since its conception in 1991, Sonic has gone through 4 American cartoons, 2 anime, 3 voice actors, 1 live-action movie, and 3 decades of comic books, each with its own canon and style. Then, you have 25 years of video games and spin-offs, including the mainline Sonic games that have been rebuilt and remastered from the ground up 5 times over. Yikes! And with a catalog that massive and contradictory, everyone's idea of what makes Sonic Sonic is going to be different. And now, in order to be a success, one Sonic game has to appeal to all of these fans, which is impossible because they don't get along. So now you have Sega desperately holding on to a relic of the 90s that's masquerading as something relevant when it's not. And at this point, their biggest marketing ploy is just nostalgia. And that brings us to Game Freak, the big daddy himself and proprietor of the highest grossing media franchise of all time. Here's the thing. 20 years ago, Pokemon was revolutionary. Not only are the characters adorable and perfect, but the way it implemented the method of choice to express how you played the game was utilized perfectly. On top of that, they took an extremely complicated subject like RPGs and reduced it to function with 2 buttons and a D-pad. Essentially, your typical RPG used to be like sourdough bread, delicious and versatile, but deceptively complex. But then Pokemon came along and said, no, put some garlic and butter on top. And the world has never been the same. And it's why they sold a bagillion copies, like a matrillion billion copies. Too many copies. So there was never one single thing that made Pokemon amazing. Game Freak took a bunch of fun concepts and made them adorable and easy to understand. But again, if we fast forward to now, the entire Pokemon franchise is made up of an anime that's 20 seasons long and has 2 different art styles, 18 movies, 1 live action reimagining, countless manga, books, guides, a trading card game, it's got 9 different unique regions, and a cell phone app that nearly broke the earth. Game Freak said simple? We don't know her. But I get it. Pokemon is the biggest video game franchise ever. There was a demand, so Game Freak and Nintendo were justifiably filling that quota. However, if you're going to market your game as something that appeals to everyone, then it better have a central theme that ties it all together. Themes like fun, adventure, exploration, ruining friendships. Otherwise, every group that you're appealing to begins to designate and define your art for themselves. And I'm not saying having a community help build the product that they're interested in is a bad thing, but the same thing happened to Sonic. And I don't know what I'm looking at here. Why does he have bandages? So, with Pokemon, instead of trying to diversify the gameplay inside its own model of simplicity, what I see is them trying to appeal to every single fan request while committing to none of it. You've got a wild area for exploration for the people who wanted an open world. There's a dramatic plot with literal giant Pokemon that explode for people who wanted an intense story. You've got another batch of new Pokemon to learn about, but also Charizard's back because God forbid we exclude Charizard. There are puzzles, but only sometimes. There are limited collectibles, but also respawning items that depreciate their value of choice. You've got random encounters like normal, but also not random encounters for the people that don't like them. And now we've got classic gym and trainer battles, but also raid battles because some of you played Pokemon Go. Also, there's the battles that don't matter because you're not strong enough. And of course, they got that idea from... Yeah, I don't know where they got that shitty idea from. Meanwhile, you've got a massive roster of Pokemon, from gods to interdimensional travelers to literal bags of garbage. You know, maybe there is some poetic metaphor in there somewhere, but I just think it's dumb. Oh, and here's something fun. You can use this equation to calculate the limit of Game Freak's kinetic potential to generate ideas that I don't like. You get it? Okay, look, none of the individual things that I just listed make the game bad. For every detail I just pointed out, there's someone out there who thinks it's awesome. But with all these new ideas, I don't think there's a core concept that they're building on. And just like Sonic, by trying to be an array of things, they water down its identity and it becomes less special and unique. And of course, this is the part where you point out that none of this argument really matters because Pokemon is still making money and the sales have generally been the same. But I mean, it's a Pokemon game. Making profit is a really low bar to set. Also, I am very curious to see how the numbers are affected by selling 2 copies of the same game. But all that aside, you know what other franchise makes money despite negative public opinion? Sonic. Pokemon just feels like they're filling their quota to make one game a year. And Pokemon obviously isn't the first franchise to do this, and it won't be the last. I love Kirby with a fiery passion, but his latest Switch title? Oh my god, boring as hell. I understand that asking someone to define their brand into a single descriptive word is extremely difficult. But like I said, Pokemon is the biggest media franchise ever, so I feel rightly justified in asking Game Freak to... how do I say this nicely? Get their shit together. And I don't mean to say this to discourage you from liking Pokemon, even though that's exactly the reason I made this video. Everyone's allowed to like what they like, and that's awesome. But I had to stop and realize that I was a Pokemon fan because I was afraid of not being a Pokemon fan. It's hard to say, but I just don't think I care anymore. But all that being said, I'd still love to know what you think. Comment below and tell me why you're still a Pokemon fan. I'd love to hear about it. It came out sarcastic. I'm not being sarcastic. And just to let you know, every comment is vetted by Tango here. So if you're gonna say something mean, you have to go through this guy first. All right, thank you. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and yeah.